Hello, beautiful humans. If you stay till the end and have questions, you get cool swag. So make sure you ask questions at the end. So yes, as announced, welcome to Dear Podcast, Can You Help Me? I started this because there's so much information absolutely everywhere. I don't know if you've noticed. Pretty sure we all have. But have you ever had it where you want to ask a specific show or your own past content or only certain documents that you're like, I just need information from this only and nothing else? AKA using RAG patterns. I'm pretty sure everybody has used them. Raise your hands if you've used RAG patterns and know what they are. All right, we got like a few. I feel like you guys might be like nervous and don't want to raise your hand. I don't blame you. I'm there too. But in 2022, I started a show called Teach Jenn Tech because, you know, it's been barely over 2 years and I didn't even know the difference between HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I've tried going to uni. I've tried learning it in school. I've dropped out of uni many times, different degrees, and I found out that trying to learn from a book or the courses or going to school, none of them really clicked. So what better way to do it than start a live stream and learn to code in front of tons of people, because that's logical. FYI, learning to code in front of an audience is nerve-wracking, especially when you're like, I have no idea what a div tag is. And trying to get people to explain what a div tag is hilarious. So if I now work at Aiven, okay, we're gonna see if we can get more hands. Who knows what Aiven is? Okay, well, you will when we get done. You'll know more about what Aiven is. We do, just think data infrastructure as we're here. And so I'm going from, I'm barely learning to code in 2022, mid-2022, to getting a new job as a developer advocate at Aiven in January 2023. There is a big learning gap, just in case anybody wanted to know. This is, if somebody asked me, what do I know about databases? I've been like, I have 100+ episodes of my live stream. I know things and stuff. And I've tried searching it before and using transcripts to be able to do this, but majority of the time, as Sid talked about hallucinations earlier, you get hallucinations. So if I were to ask my friend BotBot on how to, what I know about databases or what I've talked about on the show, I'd probably get something like koalas are not bears. And for everybody that is from APAC probably knows that. A lot of people in the States do not. So it's helpful information, but not helpful for the transcripts. And again, my name is Jenn Junod. I am based out of Phoenix, Arizona in the States, which I hear parts of Australia, the weather's similar, about 42 degrees. It's super fun, super hot. And I'm a developer advocate at Aiven. We're a company based in Finland and global, luckily. And I started a live stream called Teach Jenn Tech, where I awkwardly learn how to do things live streaming. It's very difficult and fun. It's also fun. And so Aiven is your trusted data AI platform. So come see us in the sponsor area, because if you don't ask questions, because not everybody wants to, you can come get swag from us there. So definitely go do that. So think of Aiven as your data management infrastructure, scalability, security and compliance, integration and compatibility, and monitoring and alerting. We do a ton of stuff, and we got your back. So definitely check us out. And this is also a workshop. This is actually where, as I talked about earlier, I've only been in this learning tech for like 2 years. It is nerve-wracking. It is really hard, as many of you can probably imagine. And my colleagues started making this workshop. And I was like, yo, that is really cool. I could use it for Teach Jenn Tech. And they're like, yeah. I was was like, sweet, I'm doing a talk on it, because then it's going to force me to actually learn how to do it. And today, we're talking about the tools a little bit before we go through everything. The database we're going to be using is OpenSearch powered by Aiven. We have a lot of databases, open source databases, so check it out. The programming language we're going to be using is Python, because I'm currently learning Python. And trying to learn Python with, it's very hard learning from front-end knowledge, especially like the indents. Who here loves Python? All right, we got hands. You guys are awake. I'm so excited. All right, Python it is. That's what gets everybody awake. The LLM we'll be using is Llama 3, machine learning, Hugging Face and services, LangChain, and Ollama. So, what are we going to be learning today? What is a RAG pattern, which I'm curious who all knows that? Why OpenSearch? Why LangChain? How to prepare our data, storing segment chunks, and using similarity search, which is a tongue twister when we get to, now I forgot the word, but we'll get to it. So, who here knows what a RAG pattern is? Like, can you shout it out, what it means? Yep. What's the G for? So perfect. Retrieval-Augmented Generation. So retrieval, that is like a big fancy word. I think this is one of the hardest parts about breaking into tech, is people use words and you're like, but what does that actually mean? So retrieval, think, how does it know what information to grab? And so if I want it only to grab information from the podcast, how are we going to do that? Augmentation is, what are we going to use with the information? Like, what are we going to query the information? Generation is generate information only based on the boundaries of the query and the content that we picked. So, in this, it kind of talks about what I've been doing. If I use OpenSearch to search the documents near the query embedding, think of it as finding documents that are semantically, that's the word I always get mixed up with, semantically, I can do it. Semantically similar question, not just keyword matches. Meaning that if I have a hat, and it says Aiven, so an Aiven hat, but if I want it to search for something that just is about hats, it's not just going to look for the Aiven specific hat if I ask for an Aiven hat. It might show me all sorts of hats that are available. It might show me a bucket hat, or other baseball hats. And then once OpenSearch returns the documents, we feed it to BotBot, who is my lovely friend on the screen. BotBot was probably like my favorite part of the entire presentation. Now, BotBot will review all of the documents and generates answers on them, and then we use Python to be able to view it ourselves and do what we want and format the information. So, now that we actually have a RAG pattern set up, if I were to ask BotBot what I've learned about databases, it will tell me, hey, let me look at Teach Jenn Tech transcripts. And on episode, you learned, which makes it a lot easier to talk about. So why OpenSearch? Okay, another question for the audience. Who here has used OpenSearch? Okay. Do you like it? All right. We got a few thumbs up. I like it. Because this has been a big question a lot of people have asked is why OpenSearch? It is traditional home for your search data, and your data may already be there. For this specific, what I'm doing with this workshop and talk, I could have used Postgres. There are a lot of other databases out there that we can use, but chose to use OpenSearch because it also does great for like the hybrid search with combining traditional keyword search with vector searches, but then also it's great for KNN search for K nearest neighbors, meaning that it's checking the ranking on the similarities in the vectors, but then also it's built upon information from Apache Lucene, which Lucene was a powerful text engine, which was written in Java, created back in 1999. So it's pretty cool when you can build upon things that have been sturdy and have been very strong for many years. Why LangChain? Okay, this slide also made me really happy because I had no idea what LangChain was. And I was like, dude, LangChain is so cool. And the reason I really like LangChain is because you have so many different options out there for LLMs, for your databases, for your languages, and like, what if you want to try something with OpenSearch, but then you had it with OpenAI, but then you're like, yo, I don't want to use OpenAI, I really want to use Mistral, but then I have to rewrite everything. Yo, try LangChain. It actually makes it a lot easier for OpenSearch and databases like OpenSearch to be swapped out to Postgres. Same with programming. Well, I think programming languages would be a little easier or harder to swap out, but it also makes it easier to swap out the LLMs and ML models. So how do we prepare our data? I have 100+ episodes. It is some work. I wish I knew this back when I started, but I don't think I would have understood what was going on back then. So I need to be able to take my videos, because mine's in video format, to then put it into audio format. So I will convert that using the FFmpeg, and then I will be using Whisper AI to then transcribe the audio to text. And here is a very quick version of it for one episode. Not gonna lie, that was just like the most satisfying part, is we got to 100% in like 15 seconds, whereas it took like 30 minutes on my computer. All right, so we get all of this information, and then we get a giant wall of text. I am horribly dyslexic. You tell me I get a giant wall of text, I may be able to do some control find, but that is so hard to read. So hard to read. So when we're going into doing chunking, I'm like, hell yeah, this makes it easier for me and my little dyslexic brain to be able to understand, but also for an LLM to understand. We do that by using LangChain's text splitters, which allows us to break up the large text into smaller segments. I like to think of it as we're taking an email and putting it into text message size. Back when text messages could only be, 140 characters, or putting an email into a tweet, back when Twitter used to only be 140 characters. But for this part, we are using, we're setting the size to 300 characters with an overlap of 20 characters, so that way it doesn't cut off the information from each other. And then we use separators, meaning that we split the text based on a natural pause in a sentence. So if we don't use that, then it may confuse itself quite a bit, cutting it off randomly. Which, this is what it looks like. As I said, going from an email to a text size. It definitely helps with also making sure there's not as much skipped information. So where do we store this information? We end up storing it using Hugging Face embeddings, which converts the text chunks into vector embeddings. Vector and embeddings are basically, they're not the same word, but they a lot of times mean the same thing. So vector embeddings using the all MP-Net base to V2 model. And then the embeddings, just for clarification, is a list of numbers representing the meaning of text, making it easy for the system to compare. So what do we do after that? We need to do text to vector, creating the embeddings that we need to store in OpenSearch. And now then we get the large list of numbers, and these vector numbers represent the text meaning to what we're going to be using for k-nearest neighbors. So that's how, if we go from the text to the numbers, that's how k-nearest neighbors compares how closely are those numbers to each other. And then we will be taking the vectors help search, perform the semantic search based on the meaning, not just the keywords. Using similarity search. All right, so we need to create an index. Without the index, we're not going to be able to search everything as easily. So we take the chunks of the data and put them into the index, where each is going to be indexed to be able to be read. And then, again, with the list of numbers, it's going to be able to give it the dimensional scores to be able to compare to each other. And I bring this slide back because it can be confusing what k-nearest neighbors is, and since we'll be going a bit more into that, it helps find similar items based on vector. And then when we convert the text into vectors, KNN searches allows us to find the closest matches, and this method is perfect for semantic search. So we set it up that KNN is true. That means that, hey, KNN, k-nearest neighbors is saying it's OK to pull the information from OpenSearch. And then we need to be able to match the dimensions of the LLM. And that's what we have as the 768. And then the rest of it is basically default. I like default. It makes it easier. So not too many changes here. And then this is the part where we query the vector search and perform the similarity search and find the documents that we're using. The KNN search retrieves the top results, and voila. So, the results. And this took me forever to get to it, and I love that Sid did a live demo. I'm not brave enough to do that, so we're getting the results. But if you'd like to check it out, definitely do the workshop. It came back with the chunk data of finding quotes from the information that was related to my question of what have I learned about databases. And at the very bottom, it put out a giant single line of text, which didn't really fit on screen, so I moved it here, which I'm not going to read it all. If you want it, like, take a picture. I will eventually be posting this publicly. But it's basically, it gave me all of the quotes of it, and then it gave me an actual reply of what I've learned. So, what do we do with this going forward? Like, what else can we do with this project? I've only been in tech for 2 years. I'm still learning about what everything Aiven can do, but also with data infrastructure. So I'm curious, can I make this where I can ask it, what have I struggled with, and what can I go back and review? Can I make it that it actually gives me questions to be able to quiz myself on it? What else should I learn about the topic? Who should I have as a guest? Because that's how I've had majority of the show. It has been guest-based. And having people that are like Tim Berglund from Confluent. Super cool, learned about Apache Pinot when he was over there. And it's like, that was really cool being able to hear it from somebody that has been in the industry for a long time and also start to be able to understand Kafka more and event streaming, comparing it to D&D, which, you know, if that's what is going to make sense, you got to figure out what to compare it with. And then what else can I do with this project? So I don't know if anybody wants to, you know, contribute, but what is something that you would use this project for? Go ahead.
I listen to finance podcasts, and I can never remember which stocks I bought a few weeks later, so I would use that for it.
That's a good idea. So finance podcast to remember stocks. I like that.
I've discovered that a large majority of podcast invitees, like, they're not just on one podcast, they're on 10 or 20 different podcasts, and they're giving you a whole bunch of, like, wonderful nuggets of information. So it might be really helpful to see not just how this works in isolation on one podcast. I wonder if I might be able to combine, for instance, the Chaos Community podcast with yours.
That would be cool.
Determine what those nuggets might look like. That sounds fascinating.
So combining two podcasts and being able to find out information there. I like it.
What about song lyrics?
Oh.
Song lyrics inside, and probably, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 raps and ask questions on it.
Okay. So song lyrics. So if we're looking at song lyrics and being able to, ask questions of the song lyrics, or
just find stuff, you know, information about it, because there's nothing that does it, you know, for new writers and stuff, you know, if they want to understand, you know, how lyricking works and stuff. So.
Yeah. I feel like on that one, I would also be asking, what do these lyrics mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Any ideas on how they would use it? All right. Well, that wraps up today. Thank you everybody for joining today, and come by the Aiven booth.